Welcome back. You're still tuned into ET Now, and let's first put the spotlight on the rupee. Remember, rupee continues to depreciate against the US dollar. It currently trades at 86.6275. And look at the kind of move that we have seen over the last few days. And we now have some exclusive news coming in where RBI Governor has signaled that he will be open to more flexible rupee. Ankur Mishra, my colleague, is now joining us with more the details. Ankur, over to you.
Yes, ever since rupee was fluctuating, in fact moving towards one direction, there were questions why is not RBI intervening. We also reached out to traders and we were informed that this intervention is at least 50% less what it would have been earlier. Now we have been told through sources that Reserve Bank of India still remains watchful on the rupee depreciation situation, but is adopting a more wider approach and a calibrated approach by intervening only when necessary to prevent extreme fluctuations. In fact, what RBI wants to do, they want to minimize sharp and excessive volatility, and they do not target any specific exchange rate. That is what sources have told us. In fact, there has been meetings which has been going on in Reserve Bank of India after a recent plunge which has happened for rupee. If you talk about numbers, still it is lesser than what other Asian currencies are doing currently, but for now Reserve Bank of India is definitely adopting a calibrated approach on rupee. It is on a watchful mode as far as rupee depreciation is concerned, and the reasons are simple: strengthening of dollar, rising US debt yields, and that is what is adding to rupee depreciation. In fact, through sources we got to know that in the morning RBI did intervene in the market, but it is not likely scenario that Reserve Bank of India is going to watch any key levels for rupee. Whatever will happen, it will happen in a calibrated manner, in a watchful manner, and the yield will be orderly evaluated. Therefore, what sources have informed us that Reserve Bank of India is remaining watchful on rupee depreciation, but yes, there is not going to be any kind of knee-jerk reaction which you may expect from central bank.
All right, so that's the rupee coming for you on your screens. 86.63 is where the rupee is at versus the US dollar. But Ankur, help us understand, what will Reserve Bank of India's next move be? What are you gathering from your sources?
Yes, as we were discussing, and we reached out to multiple sources on the story, because all the traders in market were wondering what will be the key level where Reserve Bank of India will intervene. But you would have seen yesterday and even today, the situation continued, and the approach is simple, that it is not one particular level which RBI is going to defend. If you talk about numbers also, compared to other Asian currencies, the depreciation is rupee is still smaller if you take into account even today's scenario, which is more than 3% if you talk about other Asian currencies. But in terms of rupee, this will be around 2–2.5%. So since the fall is also lesser compared to other Asian currencies, Reserve Bank of India is adopting a wait and watch mode on rupee depreciation.
Stay with us. In the meanwhile, we spoke to a whole host of experts on where the rupee is headed. Listen into their take.
At this juncture, it's not only us, other currencies are also impacted, but we are impacted more because we kind of remain very tight when the initial outflow happened in August, September, October. The consensus trade is to basically every other market bad, it's only US market. I think at some point of time it will change, and that's when we might start seeing, at least if not new inflows, but at least the exits once they start stop. That's where the currency will stabilize.
We are seeing significant amount of capital outflows. The FPI outflows is unrelenting, and that is keeping pressure on rupee. At the same time, what has changed really is that RBI is not keeping a tab on levels. RBI is not intervening to the levels that we have seen in the past, and that too is allowing more flexibility for rupee to move. Over the last few days, we have seen crude oil prices go significantly higher, and with additional sanctions on Russia, it does further put pressure on rupee. So all of this would weigh on rupee going forward.
The dollar index now pulling back, it's looking quite overbought internationally. So this is a perfect opportunity for the Indian rupee to now to score some gains. Not something significant. Maybe around 86.30 or 25 levels it can appreciate to. And overall, it might just stay within a range between 86.25 to 86.70 on the upside.
The rupee would be at around 86 levels. 85 would be a kind of a medium-term target where it should stabilize against the dollar, but it may also depreciate to an extent of around 87 or so. So I think 87, a short term, on a medium to long term basis, we would stabilize at around 84 to 85 levels against the dollar.
All right, continuing the coverage on rupee depreciation, we have an important guest, R. Gopalan. Mr. Gopalan, welcome to ET Now. We have learned through sources that RBI remains watchful on rupee depreciation. In fact, a more flexible approach is what looking like from central bank. What do you read in the current currency depreciation which has happened in last 2 to 3 days?
Well, the depreciation which has happened in the last 2-3 days has a number of reasons. One is the U.S. Rates not getting reduced for some time, numbers of payroll having gone up, and for yields have gone up, and equity market has come back. So this is the reason which is external. Then our equity is overvalued, and therefore people are trying to take it away and then deploy it in the U.S. market. There are growth issues which people are worried about. Oil prices are another thing, and geopolitical issues. All these things are really, pulling the rupee down, dollar going up, and all other currencies are also, doing the same thing. They are also depreciating against the dollar. So, RBI has totally spent, I'm told, so far about $100 billion to keep the dollar and the US INR at a particular range, which almost was not possible to do any further because there would be a run on the dollar reserves. And therefore, the RBI has very wisely decided that they would allow an orderly depreciation to take place, which is good. At least the rupee will find its true levels, and which will also mean that there is an indication to people outside, people who are dealing with who recover foreign exchange, who sell foreign exchange, that yes, there is going to be a depreciation now for some time to come. We do not know at what level it will stabilize. It will come down. Once it goes up to some level, it will have to come back to some level. In the sense that, if it says it's going to end up at 88, it will not stay at 88. It will come back a little bit down. So what will happen is that, of course, those exporters will hold the money abroad. The dollar receipts, they will hold abroad. And that will also create some more strain on the rupee value. I think this is a phenomenon which we will face for a very short while. And after that, things should stabilize. Ultimately, the inflation differentials between Indian rupee and the 36 countries trade-weighted average rate, inflation. So that should determine what the rupee value has to be. And probably last 2 years it was not happening, and now it is right time that it is corrected.
As you mentioned, that level definition is quite difficult, but time-wise, if you see, in few days, Trump administration will take over. Do you think that will be the scenario to actually test what will be the level of rupee? And also, I want to ask you on the government front, do you think any kind of steps which are needed?
The Trump effect, as soon as whatever decision he takes, as soon as is sworn in, obviously will have an impact on the market. And that will be the other. Today is 15th, and he is getting sworn in on 20th. So once he gets sworn in on 20th, and whatever steps he takes immediately, that also determine, that will really get to know what is the trend of his thinking. Now, nobody is able to know that. There are a lot of wild guesses going around. Now, there will be a trend. Then with that trend, obviously, the foreign exchange market will react. Dollar will react, obviously. Who knows? If he announces some tariff or something, dollar may depreciate, which may be advantageous for us. We do not know how he is going to do. So until Trump is sworn in and takes the initial steps, yes, the rupee will slide a little bit, consistent with all the factors I have just mentioned to you.
Welcome back after the break. We are covering one of the most important news, rupee depreciation, and we have learned through sources that RBI remains on watchful mode and how rupee has depreciated, especially in past 2 days. But the approach is simple. It will be calibrative. The central bank will try to curb the excessive volatility if at all that happens, but there is no particular exchange rate which central bank is looking at. In all, it looks like a more flexible approach what would have been earlier by the central bank. And to discuss this, we have with us Gaura Sen Gupta. Welcome to ET Now, Gaura. What would be the correct level according to you when RBI will think that now we need to intervene?
I think they're not looking at a level. As you rightly mentioned, they are looking to just smoothen the journey upwards. So they're not trying to change the direction. It's just the pace of depreciation. And the reason why since December last year that they have actually let more depreciation come in the INR is because they are reaching the limits of how much more they can depreciate, how much more RBI can intervene. For example, we've seen $60 billion of decline in FX reserves in Q3. We've also seen a lot of tightening in interbank liquidity because RBI has ended up draining INR liquidity while defending the rupee. So hence from December onwards, we're actually seeing that we are seeing the pace of depreciation pick up, and this is exactly the right approach that the central bank should take, that this dollar strength phenomena is across all other currencies. It's not specifically focused at a particular currency. So the currency should move in sync with market dynamics, and that is exactly what we are saying. We expect USD INR to reach 87.50 by the time we reach March 2025.
Definitely, although we will not talk about the levels, but one important event which is up ahead is Trump taking over in few days. Do you think that could be the peak of these activities?
Definitely, it will give us a better sense. The more clarity the market has on what to expect, the closer we will be towards the end of the dollar rally. But I think it'll take a couple of more months as the new U.S. government takes charge and they, start rolling out their new tariff policies, their fiscal policies. So it'll take a couple of few more months, but we'll get at least the initial sound bites of what to expect from the second Trump presidency. Will it be as aggressive as the first Trump presidency was, especially on the tariff front? For now, our expectation is that the pressure on the rupee will be more a near-term, few more months, and after that we'll see some relief, because once the market has fully priced in what to expect, then we can actually see some moderation in the dollar strength.
If you talk about next few events, of course, Trump being one of the most important event which everyone is watching out for, what could be the other triggers for rupee in the near term?
One is the most important driver for rupee will be RBI intervention. How much RBI intervention is pulled back. The reason why RBI is actually will want to reduce the pace of intervention is because the interbank liquidity, the INR liquidity has been depleted a lot. So it's basically RBI selling dollars, buying INR. So it's ended up, so effectively financial conditions domestically end up becoming tighter. So to prevent that, they'll have to slow the pace of depreciation on the INR. So I think the near-term trigger, one will be Trump taking over. I think the next near-term trigger will be RBI policy, which we are having and also our union budget that will come before that. But RBI policy will get an idea of how much RBI is willing to infuse durable liquidity domestically, which will address the drain or the tightening in financial conditions that we are seeing currently, and also will then in turn impact the FX intervention by RBI, and obviously the Fed policy, the near-term Fed policy, where we expect the Fed to remain on pause right now because growth conditions in the US are stronger. are stronger than expected. The labor market is not remains very healthy in the U.S. Inflation pressures also. Every single U.S. CPI print will be a key event to watch out for. Every single non-farm payroll out of the U.S. will be a key event to watch out for. So these would be the near-term events, in my opinion.
All right, thanks Gaurav for joining at this hour. So it seems like that Reserve Bank of India is in wait and watch approach and keeping the gunpowder dry to be prepared for any unforeseen situation. With this, it's back to studio.